we've all been in the situation where we have everything planned out that we're going to say and what we're going to do, whether it's for a meeting, whether it's for a keynote, even if it's to interview somebody for a role at your company. And you bomb it. Yes, it happens. Yes, it's happened to me more times than I want to think about. Yes, we all have those memories that we wish we didn't. So what do? And how do we get our confidence back after we blow an opportunity to talk? Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference.
Okay, so because I have primarily made my living for the last 2 decades from speaking, from leading, from communicating, I would love to tell you that every single time I've gotten up to speak, it's been better than the time before. I learn, I adjust, I adapt, all the things. I would love to tell you that. That's not true. There are some times where I had some real stinkers, and they were really, really embarrassing things. And time doesn't even allot for me to tell you of different times that I have had situations come up. One of the ones that I still think of that is, I would say, living rent-free in my head was I was preaching, and this was early on when I started my career at the church. I had this amazing sermon that I had written on marriage. And it was kind of interactive. I tend to be more of an interactive teacher when I'm not in a large group. I like the interaction. I just spoke this past week at a technical conference, and I like hearing from the people. It's just my nature. So even though I was preaching and there were, a couple hundred people there, I thought I could still get some audience interaction here. So what I did was I talked about how all couples are, essentially in a battle to stay together. And it's all about standing up and standing firm. So I said at this time, every married couple, we're all in this place. So I remember I was down on the steps. This is before we were recording for the internet. We didn't have cameras in the sanctuary yet. And I pointed to some couples that were sitting in the front. I made them stand up. And I said, see, right now when you stand, you're standing to stay together. Well, one of the couples that week were literally signing their divorce papers. Now, you might think that this story has the ending of, Sam had this awesome sermon and the couple stayed together even though they were divorcing. No, they got divorced immediately. Really bad divorce. Really, really bad situation. And it lives rent-free in my mind because it was like their last time. And so why do I think about this all the time? Because we all think about the worst moments in our careers. You're not up at night thinking about, boy, oh boy, did I kill that presentation? Boy, oh boy, did I really nail that meeting? Boy, oh boy, did I really do that deal in a successful way? No, you're thinking of all the things you missed. You're thinking of what you should be doing. You think of what you should have done. And that's why our confidence fails. Let's give you some things that are going to help you to navigate when you go sideways in a talk. All right, these are some truths that you have to keep in mind about the way people process your talk. Now, this is going to especially help you if you're in the executive role. Of course, most of what I deal with is executives. So if you are a speaker or a leader and you speak regularly for executives, this is for you. All right, so first thing, here's a truth. First truth, ready? People have short memories. People have short memories. If you doubt that, I want you to realize that Will Smith is still acting in movies. Let me explain, if you don't know. A couple years back, Will Smith at the Academy Awards smacked another actor and comedian, Chris Rock, across the face for making a joke about his wife's baldness. And it was, friendly joke according to Chris Rock, but you all know it was the slap heard around the world. I mean, Will Smith slapped him, and it was loud. And Will Smith is significantly bigger than Chris Rock. If you look at them side by side, it's crazy. So invariably, immediately after that situation took place, Will Smith's career was declared dead by just about everybody. Oh, he's never going to get another role, they said. He's permanently torched his reputation. He's never going to have any studio that wants him to be in a movie. And this was essentially the company line for about 2 minutes. Now, just recently, as the time of recording, Will Smith just put out another rap song. Out of nowhere. Dude hasn't been rapping since like the 2000s, and he comes out with a rap song. So apparently somebody is paying him to do something, and he's been acting in movies. My point is that most people have a shorter memory than you realize. And even if you're dealing with people on a regular basis, and let's say you mess up a talk, let's say you blow it, let's say you go over on time, their memory is only going to be thinking about it about up until their next bad experience. Because remember, the golden rule for the audience is they're not thinking about you at all. They're not concerned about you at all. You engaging them is a blessing to them, but they're not thinking, oh man, Sam just really didn't stick the landing with his talk. Sam really padded his information so much, it was so dry. No. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their struggles. They're thinking about their marriage problems. They're thinking about their children. They're thinking about how they're going to afford Christmas. They're thinking about what's going to happen with tariffs. They're thinking about all of these things. Very little has to do with your previous talk at the meeting. So keep that in mind, that audiences' attention spans are very short. And again, Will Smith is one example, but I'm sure you can think of other actors, Hollywood actors and actresses who had some sort of scandal, and before you know it, their faces are on the marquees of very large movie theaters as if it didn't happen. So, your audience has a shorter memory than what you would realize. Next thing, you will speak differently as a result of what you've done. You will speak differently as a result of what you have done. So that's what's going to happen. If you have a moment where you have a big stinker and you destroy a talk or you flub a meeting, you now have a point of evidence that you need to do a better job. I'm not saying that you even did that bad of a job. I'm just saying that you now have a point to go, okay, I really got to get this in gear. It's a bit of a wake-up call. I, for years, had a system that I had when it comes to the church where I would speak, and on Saturday night, I would go over all my stuff, and I would wait until the last minute to walk into the church. Because a lot of times I get caught up talking to people because I like seeing people and I'll get pulled away. And so I tried to stay in the zone right until it was about time to speak. Well, one time I was late to a sermon. And I remember racing up the hill when I saw that I was late coming in, and I saw that the worship team had already left. I saw that I was what they were waiting for. And in that moment, I thought I was going to die, but people were waiting on me. I have never been late again. That's never happened. I'm not saying that there aren't times when I was cutting it close. Last week, my microphone broke when I was in the middle of services, and it almost made me a little bit late. But what I'm saying is I never was leisurely about my time getting up there. Again, I always want to be up there a little early because I don't want the church waiting on me. Now, same is the case for when you do something. When you know that you didn't prepare enough, when you know that you didn't stick the points to the agenda, when you know that you forgot to cover certain things, next meeting is the next time that you're going to be working on this. So you're going to speak differently as a result. So we're going to talk about that when we look at some action items of what to do with this. So you'll speak differently as a result of your mistake. Next thing is you may, now this is an optional one because it's not always true, because you may be speaking to the same group of people all the time. You most likely, if you're a regular communicator that communicates in different contexts, you're going to speak to different groups of people. And the group that saw you mess up may not be the group that you are now speaking to. So, and again, if you have all of your speaking tied up in one company, then this might not affect you. But it will if you're like me, where you do have a consistent group that you speak to, but then you also have groups that you speak to just once, or maybe even just couple times over a period of a class or a coaching, and then I don't see them again. And what I'll always say is, that was a little rough, but I'm never going to see those people again. I'll never interact with those people again. This will give you a reason to speak in a way that you can be more daring if you know you're not going to see that audience again. This is why I recommend people try out things like Toastmasters, or try to do some different Chamber of Commerce things where they're speaking, because a lot of times if they go into a meeting and it's a different group of people, they can try different things out, work on their techniques, and if it doesn't feel good, well, they're never going to see those people again, theoretically. I know that's a stretch, but a lot of times you're going to speak to different people next time. Or if it's your company, maybe not the whole company was represented in that particular talk. Maybe you'll get the rest of them in another talk. So they're not thinking about, that last time he blew the talk. Context changes. One of my worst meetings was I spoke to a group of government employees that were administrators over a government program, and they were commanded by their employers to be at the program that I was talking at. So I want you to imagine they had to give up 2 hours out of their day. They had to listen to me talk about getting along and communications and all that. And I could feel it from the first moment that I started interacting with them that none of them were bought in. They were hostages at best. And I felt the relief when the 2-hour time limit came up that they were out of there. And what I told myself is, I'm never going to see these people again. I'll never see them again. I did the best I could, never happen again. It gave me confidence. So you'll speak to different people. All right, next truth. I think we're on 4 already. All right, there's 4 of these. There's a couple more of these. It wasn't as bad as you think. Next truth is it's probably not as bad as you think. One standard that is true for me, and I know it's true for most people, is that when you analyze how bad something was, in your mind, it is Vesuvius level cataclysmic. You destroyed it. It was awful. Everybody hates you now. Everybody thinks you're incompetent. Everybody's going to be talking about how you can't speak, how you can't interact. And the truth between us girls here, it's probably not as bad as you think. I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying ignore that desire to do better, but I'm certainly saying that we are our own worst judges of our work. This is true not just in speaking, but in anything that is creative. My writing, I wrote a story, a book, a short book, not too long ago, and it was okay. I knew it was passable, but I didn't think it was, I just thought it was okay. And I spent some time on it. I had an editor look at it, and the editor returned with comments that, like, this is the best book ever. This is amazing. It's going to impact all these people. I didn't see that. I just thought I flubbed my way through this and did the best I could and gave it the old college try. And in reality, I'm not the best judge of my own work, and other people have said that this is the best thing, and I might not necessarily agree with that. So you are not the one who is the ultimate judge of how well you did. It's going to be the people that you're communicating to. It's your audience. And so it's probably, and I'm saying probably, and I mean probably, I'm not saying that to minimize, because maybe you did really have a cataclysmic talk. Maybe you did have a really cataclysmic Michael Scott type of meeting where everybody is cringing. But mostly it's not going to be that way. Mostly it's just going to be that you were unpolished, maybe unprepared, maybe you could have done better, and no one is thinking about how terrible you are. All right, so it's probably not as bad as you think. Fifth and final truth, and then I'll give you a little bit of a framework to essentially rebuild that confidence. The fifth and final one is most people struggle with speaking. Most people do. Almost everybody does who has to speak. Now, if you're talking about a professional speaker, like somebody like me who has to speak every single week at church and speak to hundreds of people in corporate, we are rare animals. So those types of people typically you don't bump into those kinds of people. But if you're an infrequent speaker and your speaking is semi-regular at best, where it's just resigned to meetings and connected to group all hands and executive type meetings, most people struggle with speaking in those areas. So I don't want to say that this is a reason for you not to care, but I'm going to say that this is a reason for you to realize that the bar when it comes to passability is set extremely low. Now, I'm always saying this, and I'm offering it to everybody. This is why one of the best things you could do for your career is to work with a coach, because wherever you go and whatever you do in terms of your speaking, it's going to stick with you. So if you're interested in working together, I would love to help you. My name is Samuel Linton, which you should know, but you can reach me by emailing podcast@samuellinton.com. And I would love to give you an idea of how some of the programs that I have designed could help you to really transition from that unconfident speaker to someone who is competent and handles speaking in a different way. Most people struggle. Most people don't get it right. And if you understand that, then you're going to be a lot more graceful with yourself, because you're going to say, look, I'm not any better than this person. I'm not any worse than this person. And I hate to make that compare. I don't usually like comparing left or right, but sometimes the best thing to realize is that most people struggle with this. It's its own type of skill set. It's a soft skill that few people perfect. Nobody ever perfects it completely, but there are a few people that really wrap their heads around how to do it well. So if you get that way, you're in good company. But if you are like everybody else that struggles with this, it's okay too, because people identify that this is a struggle for most people. In fact, some of the biggest blunders that I've had over the years when it comes to speaking, after the blunder happened, I would usually be met with somebody that said, hey, listen, you did better than I could. I would never even get up there. I would never even think to speak. I would never even think to address thousands of people or whatever. I would never do something like that. And it's because it's difficult for most people. So most people struggle. You can get better. We can all get better. We can all focus on getting better, but it's just a matter of perspective. So now you've messed up. Now you know that there's some attitudes. These are all mindset things you have to keep in mind about messing up. I'm going to give you a way to rebuild that confidence, because the way you rebuild it will actually help you to solidify your performance moving forward. So the first thing is reflect on what went wrong. Maybe watch the recording once, maybe go back and look over your notes and remember the pain of the patterns. Now, analyze the patterns, not the pain. Don't sit there and go, ooh, I remember how that felt, and that was horrible, and oh, I wanted to throw up in my mouth. No. Look at it from an audit perspective. Look at it from somebody who's analyzing for the purpose of coaching. If you were to coach that person objectively, what would you tell that person? What are they missing? What are they not seeing? What is it that they could do differently? So you want to reflect. Next, refine. Change one thing. Don't look at it and say, this is the most horrible thing. Who could ever listen to this person? This is dog water. This is garbage. No. Fix one thing that will make you better. One thing. Pick the biggest thing that made this apparent failure feel like a failure, pick that one thing. Maybe it was your preparation. Maybe you didn't have enough written down. Maybe you had too much written down and you didn't even get through any of your stuff. Maybe you need less. Maybe it was that you were speaking too fast. Maybe it was that you didn't know who was in the audience and you had no way to connect to them in a meaningful way because you weren't thinking about them. Whatever it is, pick one thing and say, as of blank date, let's say today, whatever, I am not doing X anymore. And change that one thing. Next, rehearse. This is where you can pre-film yourself delivering maybe that talk again or a version of the next talk and get a feeler for what that's going to be like. When I first started speaking, I would rehearse a dress rehearsal every single Saturday in the empty church by myself. I would pre-preach my sermon to no one and get comfortable with the mechanics, get comfortable with the transitions. That normalization of rehearsing will do you good if you're trying to speak better. If you're a veteran, I'm not saying you can wing this. I'm just saying that you don't have to rehearse as much if you're doing it frequently. But if you are uncomfortable and you made some flubs, rehearsing is a really, really quick way to start to improve. And then lastly, and this one is going to be the most difficult for you to hear, reengage. That means book the next thing. Prepare for the next meeting. Get ready. Don't say, I'm never going to speak again. I'm going to outsource this, especially if you're an executive. You're going to be tempted to outsource your speaking. But remember, when you're doing that, you're outsourcing a part of your influence. You don't want to do that. So instead of doing that, plan the next thing. Okay, we're having another one of these meetings. It's going to be an awesome meeting. We're going to cover all these bases. I'm going to do it better and start to focus on the next thing. The quicker you get the next thing in the hopper, the sooner you'll be able to get comfortable with the fact that you are a speaker. This is what you do. This is what you have to do. And it's all going to come together. So confidence, just last thing, a confidence is a loop. And it feeds itself. So confidence is really brought on by action and then improved upon within action, which leads to confidence. You don't become more confident within action. You get more confident in action, if it makes sense. You don't get confident within action, just analyzing things. You get more confident within action by doing things. That's the only way you're going to get confident. You don't get confident. You don't get more confident writing a book by reading a million books about how to write a book. You can meander about that all the time. You get confident by sitting your butt in the chair, putting the words on the screen, and publishing it to whoever wants to read it. That's how you get confident. You don't get confident speaking by analyzing TED Talks and reading a bunch of books about speaking and talking to people that speak. You get confident by getting up there and doing it again and again and again. And that confidence, that action, is reinforced by the improvements that you make that only gives you more confidence. All those setbacks, all of those missteps, all of those mistakes that you make in your word choices, it's only data. That's all. Just data. It's not anything about who you are. It's everything about, this is just an experiment I had. It was data. Now I am practicing on the next talk. And again, this really ties a lot into writing as well. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got about writing is when I write a book and I know it could have been better, and I find some things about that book through readers and through exposure to reviews that maybe they didn't like or didn't land, I fix it in the next book. I don't rewrite that book. I don't sit there and meditate. I don't like to read my old stuff. It's like dead skin to me. That's a Stephen King mentality. I prefer to work it out on the next book and go, I was really low on detail in this previous book, so I'm going to be a little bit more dense when it comes to describing the setting. I was kind of cheesy with metaphors with regard to this book, so I'm going to be even cheesier on the next one. Sorry, some things you don't change. But it's the same principle. You work it out on the next thing. You don't obsess about what went wrong, but you work it out in the next project and you get stronger as a creator, as a speaker, as a writer, as a leader. You get stronger the more you do this. It's like working out at the gym. You go to the gym, you kind of fudge around in there for a little bit and you don't really know what you're doing, well, the next workout you're going to be a little more streamlined. The next workout you're going to do a little bit better. If you get a coach, the next workout you're going to have a little better form. All of those things, that's exactly the same way it is for speaking, and then you end up with better confidence. So, with that said, you can and will be a confident speaker. You can and will be a leader that exudes confidence every time you open your mouth and every time you run a meeting. So, this has been this episode of the Sam Linton Show. Reach out to me for coaching, but until then, shift your mindset, find your voice, change your world. We'll see you soon.